What is going on, everyone? My name is Andy. Welcome back to another FPL video. In this one, we're looking at wildcard drafts for Game Week 4. So I put out a tweet yesterday asking you to send me over your drafts. There was a lot that was said. I think it was over 500. So I picked a few of them to go through to create some talking points, different formations, different setups, and all that good stuff. So if you enjoy it, give it a like, hit that subscribe button if you're new around here, and let's jump into it. So the first one is a 3-4-3, and I think that's pretty common for most wildcarders, right? A lot of people are going 3-4-3. We do have some 3-5-2 drafts in this video, which I'm going to talk about later on as well. I wouldn't say this is the standard template. I do think there's a way more template team, which we will talk about as well. Just to cover off a few points from this team, though, which obviously then I won't repeat for the other videos. The other teams. I'm starting to come around to the idea that Jota could just be a good pick regardless of the Firmino situation. So obviously we're getting closer and closer to the deadline, so we'll start finding out more news from the press conference. But right now, we don't know what the situation is with Firmino, how long he might be out for, whether he'll be out at all. But the next 5 fixtures, Liverpool got Leeds, Palace, Brentford and Watford, right? Which is pretty incredible run. Yes, there's Man City in there as well, but the next 3 are all Leeds, Palace, Brentford. So 3 decent fixtures. How many is he going to start of those? He could start 2. He could start all 3, regardless of whether Firmino is available or not. So that kind of makes me think that in that spot, he could be just a decent pick anyway. And if you think about the players that people are looking to put in that position, right? So we're saying 7 to 8 million. I feel like there's only 3 that most people are looking at. So Torres, Jota and Greenwood. And let's not pretend that any of them aren't slight minutes risk. You could make an argument for any of them. Like, some people will turn around and say Greenwood's played so well, he's just going to keep playing, and you could be right. But I also think there's so many players for those attacking positions. Like, do you think he's going to play up front when Cavani's available and Ronaldo's there? I just don't see it. So yes, he can play on the right, but there's Pogba that can play on the left, Rashford to come back, Sancho as well. There's a lot of players for those positions. A lot of people will say Greenwood has to play, and I wouldn't necessarily disagree, but I'm not sure that's how it's going to play out at Man United. So he looks fine for now. I'm not saying you should sell him, but at some point he could be a minutes risk. Jota, we know he is anyway. And then Torres, let's not kid ourselves. This is Pep Guardiola. Anyone could play in that number 9 position under this guy, right? He's crazy in some ways, but also a genius in others. So yes, Torres looks good right now, but is he always going to play there? We'll have to wait and see, right? So they're not, what I'm saying is they're not all necessarily secure players. One is not more secure than another. So I actually kind of like Jota regardless. Up front, I think you have to have a premium forward spot going forward. I think it's just, and that's no pun intended, just easy to go from Ronaldo to Lukaku to Kane or whoever it might be based on the fixtures. I don't think we're at a point now where we necessarily need Bruno Fernandes. So I like that. I would also start with Ronaldo if he's available because he's just the highest price one. So you can drop to anyone else as you go. With the other 2 spots, for anyone that's in a 3-4-3, I think if you've got 2 of Antonio, Jimenez, Calvert-Lewin, Bamford, Wilson, you're probably doing all okay. They've all either got good underlying numbers, fairly decent fixtures as well, and or they're on penalties too. So they're all really good picks. I don't think there's a massive issue going for Jimenez as the punt because obviously they got a ridiculous fixture on. Like, it is crazy. If you've not looked at Wolves fixtures, I don't know what you're doing. They're mad. They're just mad, right? So going for him as a punt is decent. I do have this slight concern that he was out for so long. Is he a bit rusty at the moment? Does he want to head the ball a lot? I just don't know, right? And no one would blame him if he didn't want to, of course, if he wasn't playing like he usually would have like a season or 2 ago. So I don't mind it because of the fixtures, but obviously Calvert-Lewin looks really good with short-term fixtures and he's got penalties as well. Bamford's fixtures after Liverpool are decent too. So I think whichever 2 of those kind of 5 you go for are good. And yeah, I don't mind Jimenez because of the fixtures, really. In defence, double defence, Sarr and Semedo. Again, I don't think double walls defence is like worth wildcarding for. But if you're on wildcard, of course, which is what we're talking about, then you have to consider it. I think the fixtures are just that good. There could be a potential. It's almost like a potential differential over going someone like Sanchez and Semedo, which is what a lot of people would do. It's probably what I would do, to be honest. The only thing I would say is I don't hate Sarr, but he is more expensive. And the reason I mention that is because there's no point in this season where you're going to want to make a goalkeeper transfer. It just never happens, right? You really need to be in such a luxury position that the rest of your team is so good, you don't want to spend a transfer on them. And then the next week you got 2 free transfers. It's so good again. Then you make your goalkeeper transfer. It just very rarely happens. So you've got to kind of just decide whether that 0.5 million is worth it. It could be with the fixtures, to be honest, to do something different over those of us that are going to hold on to Sanchez. I just wonder if he's good enough for the long haul, that extra 0.5 million. That's the only thing I'd worry about. I wouldn't be worrying about the fixtures. The stats look good. I do think they'll keep a good amount of clean sheets. So I don't hate it. It's just that 0.5 million. Could you spend it better elsewhere? That's what you've got to consider. The rest of the defense, I love keeping Trent, to be honest. I probably would if I was on a wild card. Sure, I still think he's a decent pick. You just got to think about how you're going to get to like someone like Rudiger or Reece James, because Chelsea fixtures are going to get good very soon. They're around the same price. What's the plan there? And also, Laporte has got injured on international break. I don't know how bad it is. It doesn't sound like it's too bad, but if he was going to be out, then Stones at 5.3 million looks like a really good option. Otherwise, on the bench, like, obviously don't play Norman, get a different 4.5 that's actually going to play. I don't think he's had any minutes yet. And Gray, I don't mind Gray as an enabler, but again, if you had Sanchez instead of Sarr, would spending 6 million on that spot be a bit better? Like a Traore, someone like that, maybe a Sarr. Are they going to be better than Gray? Possibly. I mean, Gray could be like a Lingard from last year. New lease of life. He's getting to play week in, week out at Everton. That really could spur him on. He's quite direct. He's going to get a few shots off. I'm sure there's assists as well coming too. So I don't hate him as a pick. I just think, what is the upgrade there? How are you going to upgrade Gray when you need to? Like, again, I don't think it's a bad wildcard at all. It's just those small things to think about. Like, what are you going to do if you don't like Sarr? Are you going to use a goalkeeper transfer? How are you going to go upgrade Gray if you need to? How are you going to get to a Chelsea defender? They're the things that I'd be thinking about with this team. Okay, so I don't usually allow it when it's not on the proper team screen, but I have here. I wonder if this is just a wildcard they're thinking about doing. I'm not sure whether the button's actually been hit or not yet. But this is a 3-5-2. I assume it's a 3-5-2 anyway. Now, this is a team where money is quite spread. So there's not a bench for the keeper. You've got 2 playing keepers. You've got Dennis, who's currently playing as well. Now, I've got to be honest, I'm not quite sure whether long term he's going to keep getting minutes, just because Watford have got so many forwards on the books. Now, Pedro will come back at some point as well and might get minutes too. So I don't know if Dennis is a long-term solution. Watford fans, let me know in the comments below if I'm completely wrong on that. I don't hate this setup or this style of setup because it gives you options. So let's say someone gets injured like a Jota or a Son. They're only out for a week. You don't really want to get rid of them. Then you can just call upon Dennis to play instead. And obviously in defence as well, you've got 5 playing defenders. So you've got options. The only reason I don't like setups like this is it just doesn't feel flexible enough. Like, there's just so much money everywhere, like money in 2 playing goalkeepers. You got money spread across the defence, but no real like 5.5-6 million pound defender to get to quite easily, so you're going to have to make a downgrade somewhere else to get to that. And obviously a lot of people will have like a 4.5 million forward or a 4.5 million midfielder as bench fodder, whereas you've got Dennis, and if he's going to keep playing, that's fine. You can kind of rotate him around with the rest of the players, but I just wonder where the upgrade is. I guess the player that sticks out quite a lot is Son. You could easily downgrade him to just about anyone and get some money to spend elsewhere. So I don't hate it. There's obviously no trend. I think the next 4 of the next 5 fixtures are so good. I know it's going to be difficult to get clean sheets against the likes of Leeds and Man City and teams like that, but I just think Liverpool defence is just decent, right? We know it is. Plus, he's great going forward. I would just want him in there. Like, we're only 3 weeks into the season. Have we seen enough to completely change our mind on someone like Trent? Maybe this person never had Trent in the first place, but I'd really want him in there. So maybe a downgrade on Son to upgrade Trent. But yeah, I just think we're 3 weeks in. I don't know if we know enough to start spreading all those funds around. Like, what if you had to go to a Chelsea defender, a Man City defender, a Man United defender, something like that? Where do you find the money? What happens if Matip gets injured, right? He doesn't have the greatest injury record when it comes to staying fit. So is he a concern? Ayling, Marcel, I think Reguilon is a good pick as well. And obviously going on the Wolves defence, don't mind that at all. And then again, two playing goalkeepers. I've not looked at the rotation. Maybe they rotate quite well. But again, I just think 9.5 million on goalkeepers. You could spend either $1 million less or 0.5 million less and just use that to upgrade elsewhere. Just speaking more on the 3-5-2 aspect, the reason I don't like it is I just think that, again, I've said this so many times, the 7 to 8 million pound forwards are just so good that I would want one of those in. Like in this team, you've got Dennis and Gray, Benrahma and Son. Like, you don't necessarily have to get rid of Son, but you could downgrade Benrahma or Gray to a 4.5, and that starts giving you the money to upgrade Dennis. You probably would have to change 3 of them, Son plus one of Gray and Benrahma, and then Dennis as well. But I just think it would give you a more solid team. Just my opinion. You don't have to roll with it. But in general, all these are good player picks, apart from possibly Matip, because I just worry about his injury record. So I don't hate them. I would just consider flexibility and how are you going to upgrade if you need to, and when are you going to make those moves? Like, are you going to be happy to get rid of Son? If you are, then fine. If not, where else does that money come from? So this one is a 3-5-2 with a little bit of a difference, right? It's got all the top dogs, or most of them anyway: Salah, Ronaldo, and Lukaku. Now, obviously these are other people's teams, so you might have your own plan. So don't take everything I say as absolute gospel, right? But here's what I would be thinking about with this team. You lose a lot of value from the forward line. I've already spoken about those 5 forwards in particular, Wilson, Antonio, etc. I won't go through all of them again. How much value they offer. They're on penalties, they've got good fixtures, and you don't have any of them in this team, right? None of them at all. So if you want to get one in, obviously you can do it easy because you can just downgrade Lukaku or Ronaldo, but then you've got a huge chunk of change you've not put anywhere else in your team. Now that's not necessarily a problem. Maybe you just don't know out of Salah, Ronaldo, Lukaku which ones you want moving forward. So the best idea is just to get all 3 and then decide later. Again, not a problem, but I think you lose a lot of value because Torres and Jota, if they keep playing, are really good. Like, they are really good. Like, they're possibly game-breaking players, right? Because they play for teams that are going to score goals. They're cheap. They're also listed as midfielders as well, and they often play straight through the middle as almost like a forward. So they are kind of game-breaking players. But if they don't keep getting the minutes, like, who are you calling upon? Williams, Ayling, and Street, right? There's not really a great bench to be calling upon. And yes, you can downgrade Lukaku or Ronaldo to a Calvert-Lewin or a Bamford, whoever it is. But then you've got to spend another transfer to put that money elsewhere. So I just think that is one of the problems with going with 3 premiums in a team like this. Again, it's not bad. If this team plays every single week, this 11 players, you do really well. But I'd question whether that's the case. Cancelo is a really nice pick, by the way. I don't think he misses out as often as we think. So as long as he doesn't start making mistakes, Pep Guardiola could easily keep him in the team. And obviously he can play left back and right back. And I think the reason that Pep likes him so much is he can go into midfield and also basically become another attacker. And that is obviously good in teams that are going to play low blocks that are easier to play against. Therefore, he's going to play matches against easier teams. So I really like the Cancelo pick. But then you've got Duffy. Is he going to keep his place long term? Williams is good, but he plays for Norwich. So as a 4 million enabler, he probably would be in my wildcard team. But I don't want to call upon him too often. And if those 2 aren't playing or you don't want to play him, then you've got to play Ayling, and he plays for Leeds. Now, again, I've got him in my team right now. I haven't wildcarded. I probably wouldn't keep him on a wildcard. And I don't hate him. I don't mind playing Leeds players against weak teams like Burnley, etc. I know they didn't keep a clean sheet, but just to give you an example, I just don't think that core of Duffy, Williams, and Ayling is going to be enough to kind of, bring you along for a few more weeks. I think eventually you're going to have to make an upgrade. And again, it might not matter. Maybe you've got a plan for that. But where is that money going to come from? Do you realistically want to get rid of one of Lukaku or Ronaldo? Do you want to hold them for the next 3 to 4 weeks? And if you do, where's your flexibility? So I don't think there's any issues with this team, but there's definitely some things to think about. Again, Gray is in there as an enabler, fine. But where's the upgrade coming there? Because I just think all it takes for someone that's 5.5 million or whatever price he is now is a few blanks, and people get cold feet about them, and suddenly they're looking to move him on. I just don't know where you go with him. So I don't mind the setup, but I think sooner rather than later, you're going to have to downgrade those premiums. So what's the plan there? So I think this is pretty much the kind of standard wildcard template. This is the one you're going to see the most. The Sanchez in goal instead of Sarr, like the first team had. You've got Calvert-Lewin in there instead of Jimenez. I think if Calvert-Lewin's fit, he's going to be in pretty much every single wildcard team that's playing 3-4-3. Really good initial first fixtures. He's been playing well, penalties, etc. And then you've got the Traore spot in there instead of Gray. And again, I wouldn't even necessarily sit here and say that Traore is definitely a better option, but I just think he's been playing well and getting into really good positions. The numbers are looking good. He's not going to keep them up, right? We have to expect that his numbers are going to drop, but if he can start converting some of those chances, not all of them, just some of them, the fixtures he's got, he does look like a good bet. And there are a lot of players around the 6 million price point you can move to later on. With Gray, there's just not too many 5.5-ish million midfielders that I'd want to move to. That's my only concern about Gray. Again, he's got the same fixtures as Calvert-Lewin, so in the short term he looks like a great pick, but for all those other teams I'm just thinking, where does the upgrade come from? And maybe you've thought about that, but that's just something I would look at. The reason I kind of feel a bit more okay with having 2 4 million defenders in this team is you've got Reece James on the bench, right, to come back after his suspension. He's only going to miss 1 game. I do think that's kind of a shrewd pick. Like with Rudiger, you get pretty much guaranteed minutes. With Reece James, you do run that risk of missing the odd game. But I just think at right wing back right now, who else? Like Hudson-Odoi, I just don't think he's going to play enough minutes there to cause Reece James a problem. Plus, he's just looking so good. Like he played in the Champions League. He played in lots of big games last year for Tuchel. Like for me, he is is just their first choice right wing back. I don't think there's too much debate about that. I know that other players can play there. Azpilicueta can play there as well, but Reece James just offers something a bit different. Like, Azpilicueta is a brilliant defender, right? No one is saying he's not, but I think a right centre back is kind of perfect with Reece James having the legs outside of him. So I do like that pick. Obviously, for this week, you've just got to get by with Duffy or Livramento. I don't think Livramento is he's going to lose his place. Like, I look at it, I just think he's looking pretty good. He seems to be playing no matter what other players come in. So it looks good right now. Duffy, I do think, is a bit of a concern going forward. I just think they've got so many defender options there now. Is he going to keep his place? I think Dunk is probably going to play there, obviously, every single week. You got Webster as well. Veltman could come back in. They've got the new guy, Cucurella, I think it is as well. And obviously, he's not a centre-back. But once these players start playing the wing-back positions, those that can play wing-back start moving into centre-backs. And I just don't know about Duffy long term. Plus, it's like double Brighton defence. You want that moving forward. But obviously, yeah, Reece James comes in. So maybe it's not a huge issue, but possibly Brandon Williams is probably going to get you more minutes going forward. Not necessarily more clean sheets, though. But otherwise, yeah, I think this is a pretty nice team. You hedge your bets a bit with a team like this. So you only have one Wolves defender. So if it all goes wrong, you're not locked into double. You got one Brighton defender for the most part because Reece James is going to play. You got Traore who you can move around, and then you make a lot of use of the value in the forward line as well. And Rafinha looks decent. I've already spoken about Jota a lot. So this is the standard template team for a reason. I don't hate it at all. I think it's really nice, and I don't think there's too many improvements you can make to it. Okay, so this is a wildcard team it's a 3-4-3, but there's a subtle difference, which is basically going Lukaku over Ronaldo and then seeing what that lets you unlock. Now, I've said this multiple times already. I would start with Ronaldo. I think the next three fixtures are Newcastle, West Ham, then Villa. That is better than Villa, Spurs and Man City. But if Lukaku could get 2 attacking returns in those 2 tougher games, maybe 1 goal, 1 assist, 2 assists, 2 goals, whatever it is, then you'd be pretty happy you went with him, because I think Aston Villa is a great fixture, right? If you wanted to captain him, like in this image, that's absolutely fine. I don't think that's a bad pick at all. And then from game week 7, right, we all know how good he is anyway. But then you get the extra million to play with. So then you're not fighting with as many 4 million defenders, as many 4.5 million defenders. And there is quite a bit of value in the likes of Reguilon. I really like that pick. You got Christensen for Chelsea as well. We've not spoken about him at all. Now, the issue with Christensen is Thiago Silva. That was who was kind of taking his spot last year. But Christensen's played really well. Thiago Silva hasn't been up to full fitness at the start of the season. I'm sure he'll get embedded back into the team at some point. But as a short-term pick, Christensen in one of the best defences in the league could be a pretty shrewd pick. I don't know how long-term it is. So maybe you have to have a kind of medium-term plan of what you would do with him if he does lose his spot. But they have got some nice fixtures coming up. So if he does keep his place through those kind of game week 7 to 11, 12, whenever those good fixtures end, then he could be a pretty nice pick, which you can put on the bench for this week because you've got 3 defenders with better prospects potentially. So I do like what Lukaku can do. There's not really any other downgrades I would make in this team. Like Ben Rama, for example, he's one of those really annoying ones when you wildcard this early, because I would probably be thinking about taking him out. He's got Man United in 2 game weeks' time. In game week, I think it's game week 5. Obviously, they've signed Vlasic now as well, so he could play. It's like him, Fornals, and Benrahma playing for 2 spots. So there could be a minutes issue there. Plus, Europa League is about to happen. We don't know what's going to happen. So you can be in 2 trains of thought. One, Benrahma's playing really well. He's got me some good points. He's gone up in price a lot. There's no real need to overthink it. I'll just keep him. Or you could try and be on the, well, I'm going to get ahead of the game. He might get reduced minutes now. Europa League's come around. You've got Man United soon anyway. I'm just going to get rid of him now. I don't know which side of the fence I sit on. I think I'm happy to keep him, but if I wildcard, I think I probably would take him out. But I don't mind that you've kept him at all. Right? You're looking at a team with fairly solid players, and I think if I was wildcarding after 3 weeks, I really wouldn't want to put too many minutes risks in the team, because that just leads to more transfers at a time when you might need transfers for other things as well. So having Benrahma as a possible overthinking risk, right? He might be fine. He might just keep playing, and having Christensen as a possible risk as well. That's kind of it. Right? You can keep Duffy on the bench. It doesn't matter. He's a cheap player anyway. You could swap him to Brandon Williams or whatever if you wanted to. So yeah, overall I like it. I would still probably start with Ronaldo, but I do like what it does to your defence, right? It gives you a few more options. It leaves you a bit more flexible. And if there is an injury, you can even play like 4 at the back. The defenders are that good. So that's what Lukaku over Ronaldo does. But I do think if both are fit and available and start all 3 of the next games, I do think Ronaldo will outscore Lukaku. So there we go. Let me know in the comments below if you disagree with anything I said, or if you agree, right? There's some good players on there that you haven't considered, different setups. Are you going for Lukaku over Ronaldo, 3-5-2 versus 3-4-3? Are Jota and Torres just too good to turn down, or are you someone that doesn't like those minutes risk players and you're going somewhere else? Let me know in the comments below. Give it a like if you enjoyed it. Hit that subscribe button if you're new around here, and I'll be back tomorrow with another video.